Chapter 41, where the adventurers fight a desperate battle. The black, prism-like Pokémon slowly turned to Furhat. Furhat, you did very well finding the origin stone for me. It answered with a voice sounding like something scratching over metal. It floated lower and greeted the other forces members as well. All, except Meowth, happy to see it. You two did very well. While Necrozma had his back turned, Amy took the chance. With her paws she created an aura sphere and shot it at him, hitting his back where it exploded upon impact. As if nothing had happened, much to the adventurers and especially Amy's surprise, Necrozma turned around and looked at her. "I felt that," he said to her. "I don't suppose you're the human that was brought to this world." Amy took a pose and let her power rise, creating visible aura around her. "My name is Amy Featherguard, and I'm the one who will defeat you. Return where you came from," she spoke. Necrozma stared expressionless at her. "Are you trying to scare me?" Necrozma floated closer to Amy. She took a fighting pose with the origin stone held close. "Look, little girl, here's how it goes." Necrozma began to explain and reached out with his huge clutch. "You will give me the origin stone and then you will go home and play with your toys or drink hot cocoa or whatever you do around here." Amy looked angrily at him for not being taken serious. She stepped back a little. "Make me," she answered and presented him the origin stone. The stone began to glow bright again with Amy smiling meanly. Necrozma kept staring at her, still with his claw reached out. Seemingly nothing happened, as the stone was now glowing so bright anymore. Having done its powers, Amy and the other adventurers were confused. Amy tried again but still nothing happened except the stone shining bright. "What?" Amy exclaimed, not knowing why it wasn't working now. Mo realized what was going on. "He's from another world," he shouted out. "The stone doesn't affect Pokémon from other worlds." That moment, Amy noticed her mistake, too, and her pupils shrunk realizing she underestimated the so-called Dark Lord. "Doesn't work?" Necrozma politely asked and suddenly turned aggressive. "Too bad." With his right claw he quickly tried to grab the Lucario, but Amy managed to jump up high, barely escaping him. But Necrozma was still faster than her and caught her with his other claw in the air. Axel further tried to get past the wall as Necrozma held Amy tight with both of his claws, squeezing her. He then noticed that this wall Amy made was not very long and ran around it. "I tried to be nice and again you showed me this strategy does not work with creatures like you," Necrozma said to her and squeezed her tighter. Amy screamed. "Let her go," Axel demanded. Necrozma lowered his clutches with Amy to look cover to Axel. Their faces met and Necrozma inspected the Cyndaquil. "I see. You're the human who tries to ruin my plans." "I expected someone bigger," Necrozma said to him. Amy suddenly began to glow again like she did in the cave but started to shrink now. She simply slipped right between his claws, now as a Railu again, and landed on the ground between his legs. Still with the origin stone in hand which was not glowing anymore at the same time Ziggy noticed the wall was gone now and both the remaining forces Annihilarius and Gengarf could stand up again. Necrozma tried to grasp Amy again but was interrupted by Axel, who used his flamethrower against him. While he was distracted, Amy ran underneath and behind him but was then greeted by a bunch of angry Pokémon. Amy looked around fast. Necrozma turned around and reached out at her. "You want that? Go and get it," she shouted at him and threw the origin stone in the still open portal where it then vanished, much to the horror of everyone present, except for Amy and Necrozma. Despite Necrozma not having a real face, his disappointment was noticeable. "You think you're smart?" he asked. That moment, Axel tried again and used his flamethrower on Necrozma, who turned to him again. Taking yet another chance, Amy jumped at the prism-like Pokémon and from the side of his body jumped off again and directly into the portal, too, where she vanished as well. Axel and the adventurers were horrified seeing her disappear. "Wait!" Axel called out to her, but she was already gone. Mo looked at Steve. "I will definitely not be the one who tells her mother about this," he told him. Steve nodded without losing eye contact to what was happening. "Master. The stone. The girl," Fur had said in shock. "Doesn't matter," Necrozma answered and turned around to Axel. "This is the only currently open portal, and most important, this is my realm she's in now. It's not a matter of if, only when." Then, chaos broke out. Necrozma turned to Axel and lifted his right arm, the palm of his clutch starting to glow in a bright, white light. Hilarus quickly took Axel aside as a Necrozma fired a huge laser out of his claw that shined in all possible color and left a crater on the ground where Axel stood moments before. All the way down to the old rescue team base. Mo quickly used his thunder wave again on the Spiritomb while there was still time. "Again?" she shouted up in response. Mo decided to leave him alone, for now, but Charlotte had other plan for the ghost Pokémon. She picked him up, swung him around like she often did with her log, and threw Screaming Furhead right into the pond around the entrance to the cave where he made a loud splash and sunk to the bottom. The remaining Poniard took his two brothers and tried dragging them to safety, away from the fighting. Aaron saw this and helped carrying them to the luminous cave. The remaining forces members tried either helping Necrozma in his fight or battling the adventurers, but Gengolf interfered, blocking their attacks and began throwing rubble caused from the prior fights at them, while the one Meowth, ignoring the fighting, ran straight to the other own and desperately tried to get her out of this hole by pulling her legs. But one of them got through, literally catching Mo off guard. Before Mo knew it, he found himself feet above the ground, and the next moment was dropped off on top of the hill right next to the Keclean shop. Looking and seeing what was going on, he found himself face to face with the Mandibuzz of the group, Vulturia, from yesterday. She looked at him very pleased and anticipating. "You think I forgot about you?" she asked him. "I still got a bone to pick with you." Mo looked at her and felt kind of disappointed. "A bone to pick? Seriously?" he asked her back. Vulturia grinned and walked up closer to him. She lifted her wings, to look bigger and more intimidating. "I have a collection of bones of my enemies at home. Let's see what kind of bones you have." Mo was not sure himself and definitely don't wanted to find out. Vulturia shouted and a beam of dark, purple rings shot out of her beak at Mo, who reacted by repelling it with his thunder shock. As the two attacked hit, it caused an explosion and dust whirled up between them. After only a second for Mo to breath up, light blue razor blades suddenly shot through the dust cloud at Mo, all of them hitting him. They only slashed his cloth slightly but still hurt bad like cuts. What hurt more was Vulture flying through the dust slightly above the ground, her beak glowing, and being hit by said beak, making Mo fly and slide across the grassy ground. Mo scratched the dirt with his claw in anger before getting back up. "What wrong? Tired already?" Vulturia mocked him. "I was already tired before you snatched me up," Mo told her. "You can probably guess why." "I'll tell you what's more tiring," Vulture began to tell. Almost drowning after being knocked out and thrown into the ocean, barely managing to get to the mainland and then being told I suck at my job. Hearing that, Mo got a flashback of his second mission. After her little story, the Mandibuzz wasted no time and shot her dark pulse again at Mo. Mo snapped out from his PTSD just in time to jump up and avoid the attack, at the same time deciding to strike back. Mo unleashed his claws and swung them at her, but missing her. Back on the ground and now closer to her, Mo tried his attack again, but Vulturia still was faster than it appeared to be. She also seemed to be smarter as well. She spotted a weak point on him while unsuccessfully attacking and shot her dark pulse again, getting a direct hit this time. Mo was thrown to the ground again, Her last attack burned similar like Furhat's shadow ball, and Mo began to have trouble moving and staying awake. Vulturius slowly walked up to him. What a weakling this Andre must have been to have been defeated by a misshaped creature like you. Trying to get up, looking at the upcoming Mandibuzz, Mo spotted Charlotte. She somehow got up here as well and was rolling directly at them. Vulturia seemed to had not noticed yet, but she soon did. Charlotte jumped up and crash-landed with her log directly on the back of Vulturia's head and making her eyes pop out and scream up in a weird, avian way. Landing safely again, Charlotte rolled over to Mo and helped him up. Vultura was flapping her wings and bopping her head up and down in pain while exclaiming gibberish, but recovered shortly after. "Hey, you!" Vulture shouted at Charlotte. "Get lost, this is personal." Charlotte stroked Mo's side carefully. "I said, get lost and fast," Vultria shouted again. She made herself look big again. "Are you even listening to me?" From behind Charlotte, Mo saw Vulturia prepare another dark pulse. I think you should turn around," Mo suggested Charlotte, and so she did, just in time for Vultria to attack again. Charlotte quickly turned around as well and successfully blocked the beam with her log. When Vulturia had finished her attack, Charlotte poked her head from behind her log and meanly looked at her. Vulturia returned with a similar expression, pushed herself off the ground and flew towards the Quamala. Charlotte jumped up as well and blocked Vulturia's attack, pushing her log against the inside of her beak, each pushing another. Mo decided to help out his partner and, not feeling tired for a moment, joined in with his thunderbolt. The Mandibuzz was hit off guard and weakened to the point for Charlotte to push her to the ground, making her fall onto her back. Mo jumped on her big, feathery belly, that actually felt really fluffy. She looked up at him, Mo preparing to strike down on her with his raised claws. What the two did not notice, the fight between Necrozma and Axel and Hilarious went on exactly next to them, down the hill where the Keclean store used to be. Axel, somehow, managed to keep up with the Black Ultra Beast, but even with the help of the Guildmaster Inferior he was still inferior to the so-called Dark Lord. Necrozma managed to knock down Axel and pointed his clutch at him, again trying to destroy him with his prismatic laser. Hilarious stepped in and forcefully pointed the outstretched arm away from Axel, unintentionally pointing it directly at the other fight that was going on. Charlotte did notice. She hurried, jumped onto Valuria's belly as well, grabbing Mo and pressing him against both her belly and her log, and hurried away as fast as she could. Mo could almost see nothing. They rolled down the hill and onto some bush behind the former store, while Mo could hear Vulturia scream for a split second, followed by the sound of the laser, then silence. Having landed safely, more or less, Charlotte landed on Mo. He looked around where they were, looking up where they had been seconds before and saw, just like the path down to the rescue team base. The spot where they just fought had been vaporized. He did not know what happened to Vulturia, but she was heard from again that day. Mo looked over to Charlotte and rested his fake head on her shoulder. "For me, this day is done," he said. Necrozma picked up Hilarious with his other clutch and threw him against the side of the hill right next to where Mo and Charlotte were. He looked up, hurt, and saw the two. Surprised seeing another, neither of them knew what to say. "Just give up already. You won't change anything in my plans," Necrozma told Axel and was floating closer to him, intimidating. Axel tried to stand his ground and the flames on his back bursted, intimidating back. "I was chosen to defeat you. And even if I wasn't, I still fight for my friends, my family and in what I believe is right." Necrozma floated a little higher and presented his might. "I'm the most powerful being in ultra space and very soon in the Pokémon world, too. And what are you? Just one of many pawns of a ruler that doesn't get his butt up from his throne or whatever he does all day. He is well aware the end of the world is coming. The stone may fix the universe after its destruction, but all there is will be lost forever, all the lives, all the knowledge, Gone. The end of the world? Axel asked. Necrozma floated closer to him and lower. They did not told you? Necrozma asked and seemed surprised about it. That's what I thought. Hilarious stood up again and tried attacking Necrozma from behind, but was instead grabbed by him and held like he was nothing to him. Axel lowered his fire and began to think, appearing to have sunk into his thoughts. It doesn't matter anyway. Necrozma went on. I will overthrow your gods, and when the time comes I will be victorious, and the world will accept me, praise me as their Lord and Savior. Hilarious effortless struggled to get away. Mo and Charlotte were watching everything from behind the bush they landed on, hidden from sight. The courage Axel had, the hope and the will to fight slowly and noticeably faded away from him. Exhausted, he went to the ground on all four. Axel, what are you doing? Get up. Hilarious told Axel and was then slammed into the ground by Necrozma, silently lying in a harp-shaped hole. You see, your side will not win this conflict. Necrozma began to tell calmly. But your friends are still too stubborn to see their hopelessness. His face began to glow sinisterly and floated up into the air. Let's show them who's really in control. He looked down to Axel, he looking up to him, scared, not knowing what will happen, what he should do. Small, black lightnings started appearing around Necrozma, who then began to break into peace, all floating around a glowing and colorful rock, seemingly what was Necrozma's face. What are you doing? Axel called out to him. No answer. The glowing stone was apparently looking at him. Suddenly, all the rocks flew towards Axel. Mo did not know what had gotten into himself. Maybe he did it out of instinct, maybe still felt in Axel's debt after Amy and Steve saved him that day, but Mo ran to Axel just before Necrozma could. Charlotte tried to stop him, but this time she was too slow. Mo stood in front of Axel, trying to stand as tall as possible for him, his arms spread wide out. No! Mo called out just before the rocks hit him instead of Axel. Then a bright light followed by darkness and silence. Mo slowly opened his eyes again. For some reason he was seemingly unharmed. He actually felt better than before, better than ever in fact. He lifted his right arm and looked at his claw. He was now wearing some kind of gloves, similar to Necrozma's clutches, larger and more rock-like, and his skin appeared more paler and more glowing. Around his real face he was now wearing a black mask with a symbol like Necrozma's face on it, his eyes glowing bright yellow. The burned-out tips of his face ears got now black, spiked attachments, and so did his fake tail, now having spikes around the tip. The forces and the adventurers at the center of the Pokémon Square stopped fighting and looked at him in a mix of shock and surprise. Aaron came running to him. This is interesting, Mo said to himself as he inspected his claws more, now sounding like he and Necrozma spoke the same words at the same time. What confused Mo was he thought about saying something like this, but did not want to say anything. He turned around to Axel, also not actually intending to see if he was all right. Axel looked horrified and backed off from Mo. Mo, is everything all right? Aaron worriedly asked Mo from behind him. Not what I had planned, but still interesting, Mo said, this time sure he was neither thinking or doing what he was now actually doing. He then realized he actually had no control of his own body anymore. He could still think and see, but not act. What happened? Aaron asked again and put a ribbon on Mo's side. Mo turned around. Aaron and Charlotte looked worried while Hilarious, who was just getting back up, dirty all over, looked horrified. I'm not Mo. Mo told Aaron.